What's up, guys? Fall camp has begun, and so have fall camp position battles. Is a freshman going to start at cornerback? Locked On Gamecocks starts right now.
You are Locked On Gamecocks, your daily podcast on the South Carolina Gamecocks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, guys? Welcome into Locked On Gamecocks. I am your host, Chris Marler. It is great to have you along. I am very excited about tonight's show, or today's show. You're going to be getting this on Monday morning. I am recording it late Sunday night, mainly because our guy Shane Beamer told me to wait. Not me specifically, but he tweeted out that the weekend wasn't over. There was some news coming. As of the time that I'm recording this, that has not happened, but we move regardless. Very excited about tonight's show. Fall camp has opened. It was also a very busy weekend in Columbia and in the 803. We had multiple types of football going on. So I am happy to have you along. Like I said, I'm Chris Marler. Thanks for making Locked On Gamecocks your first listen each and every day. Shout out to our everydayers. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Tonight's episode is brought to you by our good friends at FanDuel. Guys, summer is almost over. The heat hasn't stopped. Obviously, in Columbia, it's still very, very hot. But the sports are going to start sporting again like we want them to very, very soon. In the meantime, make sure you guys go visit our good friends at FanDuel, because regardless of whether college football has started or not, FanDuel's hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus every single day all summer long. So make sure you get over to FanDuel.com to get started today. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. FanDuel.com to get started today. Let's get into tonight's show, and here's what we're talking about tonight. All right, guys. Fall camp started. We've got 2 practices out of the way. You had a big weekend in Columbia as well. Going to talk a little bit recruiting. Not necessarily any great news from a recruiting standpoint, but we're still going to talk about it regardless of that. And then also talk about some other things happening in and around college football, some news outside of the SEC that I think is very interesting that will probably impact the landscape of college football this season, as well as 247 Sports coming out with their preseason top 25 and our good friend and fellow Gamecock, Brad Crawford, coming out with this top 25 as well. Now, let's get into what we have seen so far. Fall camp has started. Not a ton to report. I think that's probably good news and, not bad news. Sometimes no news is good news. And I think in fall camp, especially in the first 2 days, that seems to be the case. Now, the only thing that I would say you saw that was like a little bit unexpected, maybe you had a couple guys in some non-contact jerseys, which was kind of expected. Rocket Sanders was a full go. He did have a brace on his shoulder. Let's see here. One of the many names that I butchered on our last episode. I appreciate you guys in the comments, by the way, helping me with the pronunciations as well as having a laugh at my expense because it's deserved. I genuinely appreciate that. It's been a lot of fun interacting with you guys so far. But Desmond Yu is that's how I'm going to pronounce it right now. Defensive player, obviously, he was wasn't spotted in any of the position drills, just a case of the flu. I told you guys I've had it. It's been awful. It's been going around Columbia. I'm still a little bit nasally in general. But yeah, just some stuff like that. Outside of that, not a ton to report. Did think it was interesting. You saw in some of the practice viewing periods, you had the offensive line working with some of the tight ends on combo blocking, and especially with field goals, even from a field goal and special teams unit standpoint. You didn't have any field goals going up, but it just shows you again the level of importance of special teams going into the season, and also a Shane Beamer coach team. Here's what I want to get to. Okay, so when you talk about this defense, right, we're going to pull off this Lindy's like we do every episode and kind of go through and thumb through some of this stuff. I've told you since day one of the things I'm highest on with this team is some of the positions that you had a year ago that were your biggest liabilities can become your biggest strengths. And one of those is the secondary. We've talked about it a bunch. It's arguably from a athleticism and a physicality standpoint, your deepest and your best, like from a starting standpoint, from the starter standpoint, I think it's the best unit on the team. Like, sure, offensive line can get there. I understand what we have here at the running back position, what we could see with all the transfers you have at the D-line and also and the receivers and all that kind of stuff. But let's make no mistake about it. The secondary, I think, is the strength of this team from a talent standpoint especially going into fall camp. Now, that being said, you got a ton of returning talent. The cornerback position, and again, you're going to be in a 4-2-5 or a 3-3-5 majority of the time in this defense, right? 4-2-5, 3-3-5, the flex nickel. I would assume you would probably run with the 4-2-5 more. It really just so you can get more dudes on the field that fit that scheme, because that's where I think you have better athletes and guys that you can put out there. Sometimes it's the Jimmies and the Joes, not the X to the nose type thing, in a 4-2-5 than a 3-3-5. But that's neither here nor there. Now, you're going to be running in a flex nickel a majority of the time on defense. O'Donnell Fortune, right, is a guy who's a fifth-year guy, I believe, and he's a senior who's locked down one of those positions. By all means, lock down one of the cornerback positions. Who is going to start at the other spot across from him? Because I think going into the year, I keep talking about how you have all this depth and you have veteran leadership, especially at this position or position unit. You don't necessarily have that with who's competing to take over that other starting quarterback position. So you look at the guys who are coming in. Is a freshman going to start? Is it a guy? I mean, because you got a couple guys that are all, you got three main dudes and two of them from the 2023 class. And you look at some of the places on this roster where you're not going to say thin, but you are young. And that is definitely one of them. Now, the good news is now the three guys are going through this, and you talked to Clayton White about this in some of the press conferences following the first two practices, and the three options and three guys that seem to be getting a majority of the reps competing for that spot are this. Judge Collier, Bakari Swain, and Emory Floyd. Now, all three guys he's made a point to say have been competing really well and had a really good spring. On paper, you look at it and you're like, I wonder if Bakari Swain is a guy that really showed out in the spring, also the spring game, even though he's only pretty limited in some of his, in the reps he got. He is a former 4-star. He's a former top 100 recruit. He had the best spring if you talk to people that were, I guess, around the program. He kind of feels like the guy who most people think would get the nod, but that he's not run away with it by any means. You talk about a guy, like I said, with Collier, who played in all 12 games last year, including 2 starts. Experience is going to be necessary, I think, in a lot of positions. And the biggest thing for me is this. If you're going to start a freshman, and I understand he's already been there, and this is not his first year, but if you're going to start a freshman, this is not exactly the position you want to do that in. You might be forced to. And again, it's not like he's a 2024 graduate that graduated high school and went to prom 3 months ago. But that being said, if you're going to start a freshman, you got to have a lot of faith in that freshman. A lot of faith is in this position specifically. I want to read you what one of the quotes was about this position and how they are going through who is going to compete and just like what coaches are looking for, breaking down expectations. And it's not just, like I said, it's not just Clayton White. You talk about like the position coaches as well. Torian Gray and the defensive backs coach. These are some of the quotes we have read. This is from our friends at Big Spur over there, 247. It says, just like I tell other guys, I really want to see those dudes take every day the right way. This is from Clayton White. Definitely can't bypass trying to look forward. Can't be jumping ahead 2 weeks. This is a day-to-day, practice, meeting to meeting. Meeting to meeting is big to me. I want to see them competing. I want to see them making plays. I want to see them being technically sound. I love this next part. Understand the defense, understand their leverages, and understand what the call is and play it correctly. I will maintain this. I don't care if quarterback is the highest paid or the most important position. Playing cornerback in high-level football is the most difficult thing to do in sports besides hit a baseball. 1,000%. Having to line up against a dude who's 6'2", 220, running a 4.3, 4.4, and he knows where he's going and you don't, nightmare fuel for a below-average white athlete like me and myself, just speaking personally. It's a very, very tough position. So let me go back again to what Clayton White said. Want to see them being technically sound, understand the defense, understand their leverages, and understand what the call is and play it correctly. You might have to start a freshman. So if that's the case, And listen, I'm being a little bit dramatic when I say freshman because it worries me. Like having a freshman in that spot is not easy, especially if it's not some former 5-star guy that you see rolling out there with at Ohio State, Georgia, and Alabama. It doesn't mean these guys are talented, but like those are the guys that usually start day one or early on in their careers at that position. Now, is it going to be Swain? Is it going to be Collier? Is it going to be Emory Floyd? I think what you're going to see, especially early on, you're going to have to roll out somebody that's going to start in day one against ODU. This will be a position unit that I think will probably play into the season a little bit. Now, you need to get it settled pretty quickly because if there's anything we've seen from that LSU offense, I know they got a new OC, but like they are going to throw the football around. Kentucky, they are going to try to be more smash mouth, I think, in their approach. They had a lot of talent at receiver and pass catchers and also at quarterback, but just knowing what we see from a Mark Stoops offense and a Mark Stoops team, they're going to be more hard-nosed, run the football, blah, blah, blah. You got 2 weeks, in my opinion, to get it like kind of figured out. I think it'll play on into the season. But the biggest thing for me, outside of the leverages, understanding what the call is, and those things you hear of direct quotes from the coach itself, the biggest thing to me is the Ted Lasso line, man. Got to be a goldfish. Got to be a goldfish. You are going to get beat at some point, and you're going to get beat early. I remember when I was covering Alabama in 2019, 2018, going down and seeing the Orange Bowl, and it was like CeeDee Lamb. I think it was CeeDee Lamb. It was somebody. It was like one of their incredible receivers, and Kyler Murray and Patrick Surtain was a true freshman. Surtain is one of the best DBs in the NFL. He got burnt several times in that game. From a confidence standpoint, you have got to be a goldfish at this position. So I think you're okay starting a freshman year. You're starting a young guy, not just out of necessity and what you have on the roster, but I think you got some dudes that are going to be playmakers. And here's the thing that I love the most out of all of these guys. Every single one of them over 6 feet, 2 of them over 6'1", physically can play the part. 6'1", 190, that's a physical corner. That's a physical corner. You got to have that going up against what you're going to be seeing with SEC receivers across the board, especially with the ones you're going to be seeing this year. Not just Juice Wells, Amos from Ole Miss, some of those dudes at Alabama, Kendrick Law, like big physical dudes. Kyron Lacey at LSU, some of those guys at Kentucky that are deep. You're going to need to be physical at this position, and that is the one thing that I'm most excited about because physically they may be young, but physically they look the part, and I'm very excited from that standpoint. So we'll see how it plays out. Like I said, not a ton to report, but we will get into more of that up in the next portion of the show. Before we do, I want to brag on our good friends over here at eBay Motors. You guys have heard me talk about it before. They do a tremendous job. Passion, drive, patience, guys. It's a formula for winning championships. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. And eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. I'm talking superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed or power or style or all the above, eBay Motors has you covered with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You will always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're either burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available for U.S. customers. All right, guys, welcome back into Locked On Gamecocks. Listen, before we get started and wrap up some of the weekend update, if you will, news and notes from the first couple of days of practices, I want to talk to you about after you're done listening to this, and I appreciate you guys listening each and every day, but make sure if your first listen is Locked On Gamecocks, as it should be, make sure your second listen is with our good friends over there and Spencer McLaughlin and Locked On College Football, just college football as a whole. Love what he does. Also love what Chris Gordy does with Locked On SEC. But make sure you are tuning in for your second listen and enjoy Locked On College Football, the podcast here from Locked On. It's going to get you ready for an exciting season on the gridiron with discussion on the upcoming season, the ever-changing landscape of college athletics, including conference realignment, the transfer portal, NIL, new college football expanded playoffs, and more. Locked On College Football is available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. each and every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, let's wrap up some of the stuff from the first couple of days of practice. And here's one of the things I thought was interesting, strictly because of who the head coach at South Carolina is. And it's going to be a focal point always under a Shane Beamer team, and that's special teams. Now, there's a lot of knowns, I feel like, especially from the front line of who you're going to get in a lot of these positions. And there are some position battles, but one of the ones that I think, I don't want to say took center stage, but stood out to me at least early on in the first couple of days of practice, and that's kick return and punt return. You've obviously got a new coach, DeCamilo's coming over from Texas, and also, like I said, Beamer Ball is not just a branding; it is a very, very real philosophy on how to go about coaching a football team and make no mistake about it. This is going to be a situation this year where, you all like being able to score points is so important, and scoring points are at such a premium nowadays in college football. Being able to score non-offensive touchdowns and being able to get in the end zone when your quarterback and receivers and running backs are on the sideline, always huge. So just kind of like glossing over this, there's nothing that was like solidified, but I just want to give you a heads up on some of the names and bodies we saw back there, because it's a lot. There's about 8 dudes competing for it. Just off the top here, Jared Brown, Jalen Kilgore, then Jaravius Jacobs, Gage, like we said before, Juju McDowell, and Vakari Swain, all guys competing for that. Now, I don't think it's something that is, I'm not trying to downplay it because I just told you it's important, because special teams are very, very important. That being said, you're looking at a team that only returned 20 total kickoffs a year ago, right? Like, and in this day and age of football, I'm not going to get on a soapbox, but the watered down version of trying to make sure we keep everyone as healthy as possible, which is great for the game and great for the athletes playing it. But let's face it, special teams has become, especially at the level above this, more and more of a, I don't want to say afterthought, but it's been an expense from what they're trying to turn football into. You've seen, like, if you watch the Hall of Fame game on what do you call it, the NFL Hall of Fame game last Thursday, the first game of the year, you saw the new kickoff rules. It looks silly and goofy, and maybe it's something we'll just, in a couple of years from now, be like, oh yeah, I don't know why we didn't always do this. I don't know. Regardless of all that, it's not like you are replacing somebody that had a ton of production, even though Xavier Legette was the main guy back there. And you also had Dak Joyner. Some of these names, I'm not going to like pick a favorite of who I think is going to go out there and win the starting job. Juju McDowell is a guy that I think, like, from an experience standpoint, he's been in Columbia for a minute. It's a name that just seems to keep getting, I don't want to say buried, but just like kind of lost in the shuffle going into the season so far. Jalen Kilgore is a guy that was back there, several times last year. I think he had a handful of returns in the punt game a year ago. Obviously, Gage, the kid from the transfer portal, I'm not even going to try his last name because I butchered it so badly last time. And when I get confident enough to say it, I will, guys. But right now, no, it's a speedster though that he can be very explosive. The other one here is this, Vakari Swain. We just talked about him a lot, about how he might be the favorite to potentially lock down that other quarterback position. The one where that keeps coming back and being used by coaches and people, around the program and in the media to describe that kid is playmaker. And that is something that you need back there. So those are the main takeaways from that specific position unit. Obviously, listen, got a lot of time left before the season starts. I'm recording this. We're 27 days away. You're listening to it. We're about 26 days away. Very excited for the season to start. And I'll tell you what, I'll make a promise to you right now. Not only will South Carolina win that first game, I will have 98% of the roster under control in terms of pronunciation. And then we'll get to other words in my vocabulary that I need to work on too. And all that good stuff. Anyway, here's the other thing I want to talk about, and it's recruiting. I've come on here multiple times and I've told you, like, listen, you don't need to be concerned about the recruiting. And I'm not concerned. You lose out on technically 2 guys this weekend, but it's really only one. Jaylen Gilchrist commits to Maryland. Jaylen Gilchrist commits to Maryland, offensive lineman, top 100 player, depending on which site you look at. Really good get from Mike Loxley in Maryland. It was down to South Carolina, Maryland, and Georgia. Georgia signed another behemoth offensive tackle or offensive he will probably like start out at tackle or guard and be able to play multiple positions. But a massive, massive body again on that wall they're building down in Athens. It felt kind of obvious it was going to be a 2-team race after that. If you talk to anybody close that was following his recruitment towards the end of it, even though he had multiple visits to Columbia and one late in his recruiting process, it was a foregone conclusion as the day came that he was going to choose Maryland. I'm not worried about the state of South Carolina recruiting. I do have a couple of things that are concerning. Last week, right? One of the first people we brought up that you landed since I've been hosting the show, Jaden Breaker, a kid from one of my old regional rivals growing up, South Gwinnett High School in Snellville, Georgia. He flips and goes to LSU, a 6'3", 210-pound linebacker. And here's the thing. You can look at that and say, now, it's a 3-star. He's the lowest ranked player in their class for LSU. I don't know what he would have been for South Carolina. But I've told you guys before, like my main job, I work for ESPN Baton Rouge, talking to my buddy Matt Moscona, who also hosts Locked On LSU. The people around that program are excited. That's not just like a body they were filling now that you're getting, like closer to signing day. And the conversation I had with Matt Moscona about this was the exact quote. Two things, and they were both concerning to me. And that was, this is not a guy now that the NCAA has expanded your roster where you're taking 105 scholarships instead of 85. This isn't a guy that LSU would have gone after before that. It's just not. But now that you can afford to, they are. And they came and plucked him off your commitment list. And in this day and age, it's very difficult to keep kids committed and all the way from when they first commit and when you're recruiting them to signing day. I get all that. But this is a guy that is, like I said, the lowest ranked recruit in their current class. It's a top 3 or 4 class in the country, depending on where you look. And they just came and took him. And the concern I have here is not just that, but the other one was what Moscona said, the quote that was said about him, 6'3", 212, right? He's a project for LSU at least. That's a body that will see the field. In this stage of football, when whether it be safety, whether it be linebacker, wherever, he's going to fill out that frame for sure. He'll probably end up being like on field at 6'3", 225, 230, and he'll probably do that early. It's considering the advances we've seen these kids once they get into a weight program and all that kind of stuff. That's a frustrating loss. So I guess what I'm trying to say is this. The Gilchrist thing sucks. The Gilchrist thing sucks as he goes to a place like Maryland, and South Carolina is a better program than Maryland. That's a tough pill to swallow. Now, he's from somewhat in that area, and that is a talent-rich area that really you've seen South Carolina be able to go in and take advantage of. But tip your cap to Maryland. They got one to stay close to home and all that good stuff. I don't think there's anything to panic about. I don't love not being able to, it feels like somewhat get bullied at times when other teams want to, whether it's Georgia flipping a guy earlier in July, whether it's LSU going out and getting a guy that's, would have been, he wouldn't have been the lowest ranked recruit in this class. He becomes that at LSU because it's a bigger brand. I don't like getting bullied in anything like that. So we'll see how it closes out. You're still several months away. You're still a top 30 class in the country, and that's fine. I just, like I said, it's not a time to panic. I think that it's a situation where the focus is going to be on the season, and then you filling out the rest of this class. You got about 19 commits right now. You signed another 4-star on Friday, so you're up to 6 4-stars in this class, and 19 total. So you need to go out and get, obviously between 6 to 9 more in this class probably, and hang on to them. And I think a lot of what happens on the field this fall is probably going to go a long way with some of these kids as well. But that is the thing. Here's the other thing I want to say, and this goes for everyone. This goes for everyone, not just South Carolina fans, but I did see it a lot on Twitter, especially this past weekend. Don't tweet at recruits. Don't tweet at recruits. Don't tell them they made a mistake. Don't say anything about their parents. Don't tweet at recruits. Just don't. There's never been a time in our life, I don't care how old you are versus how old I am, There's never been a time in your life where you have or seen somebody that has tweeted at a recruit and they've been like, you know what? That overreaction, that irrational outburst you just had, like a kid who didn't get what he wanted for Christmas, that was what changed their mind for them to come back to your school. Just don't do it. Just don't do it, guys. That's all I have to say about that. Listen, we got one more thing to get to. We're going to talk a little bit about the preseason top 25, as well as some things going on at Michigan that I think will shape the landscape of college football as a whole. But before we do, guys, I want to get to one very quick thing and give a shout out to our good friends at FanDuel. Talk about them a lot. We are going to be using them a lot once it comes game time and the season starts as well. Listen, I love sports. I tell you this all the time. Love them so much, I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games. Sports aren't sporting like we want them to. FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want, however I want, all year long, every single day. All I have to do is open the app, dream up any bets that I want to make, whether it's a single bet, cover the spread, parlay, what money line, whatever. Anytime I'm in the mood, FanDuel is there for me, which says a lot. This summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a booster bonus daily. That's right. There is something for everyone each and every single day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com. Start making the most out of your summer. That is FanDuel.com. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, guys, make sure you stick around. We will be right back. All right, guys, we are going to finish out today's show and talk about a lot of stuff. One, tip of the cap to the city of Columbia. Okay, something happened this weekend. There was a soccer match in Columbia in Williams-Brice, and I had several friends that went. I had several friends that came in from out of town, whether it be from Atlanta. I had a couple that came in from Auburn that made the drive and were fired up. I am not a huge soccer guy unless it's the Olympics or the World Cup, but Liverpool and Man U playing in Williams-Brice Stadium, and the two biggest takeaways, you heard it over and over. One was hilarious, and one is just a testament to Williams-Brice itself. And the two biggest takeaways were, one, it's the hottest place on earth. Can confirm. I bring it up almost every show. It is the hottest place on earth. They were not ready. The people covering from across the pond were not ready for that. It was very, very hot. I don't know whose bright idea it was to schedule a soccer match outdoors in the beginning of August in Columbia, South Carolina, but hats off to you. That's a lot of Gatorade, a lot of water to be drinking as well. But tremendous turnout. The final number for the turnout was 77,559, which is a sellout from Willie B. There were some people missing, obviously, from some gaps like that because the weather was bad. You saw multiple people make comments about it online, like, oh, there's more people here for a soccer game than football games. One, not true. Two, even if they are, cool. Wait, what an opportunity to show off one of the best venues in the entire country here in your backyard, because just the spectacle itself, the weather was horrible all day. You had tens of thousands of people outside of Willie B and then inside of Willie B sticking out in the rain to watch 90 minutes of a sport that most of us, aren't super big on, especially in the Southeast. But it was incredible to see the turnout. And here's the thing that I kept thinking about too, and it was confirmed by this. This is a leg that this is the last leg of this tour over here in America that these two teams and the Rivals in Red series that we're having. It's the only college in the country that hosted it, according to Ray Tanner. That's so huge. That anytime you can show off to the rest of the country or the rest of the conference or the state, because damn well that the exhibition that was going over there in Clemson, watching the Panthers and that blank show with their their preseason camp and practice, way cooler over here on this side of the fence in the mid-state as opposed to the upstate. I will also tell you this. The fact that you get to show off in front of the entire world to have this be on display is really cool. Just really, really cool opportunity. Love that. All right. We'll probably push back the top 25 list. South Carolina did not make it, but there are some things that I want to get to. And we'll just answer one of your questions, because somebody brought this up and they were talking about the the SEC itself and where the pecking order is going to be now with the expanded field of 16 teams and also the expanded field of playoffs from going from 4 to 12 and then next year to 14. Somebody asked me this, and I it was on Twitter the other day. It was a South Carolina fan. And they said, which team in college football do you think will benefit the most from this expanded playoff? And will the SEC be able to see even more teams get in each and every year? I think you're going to see around 3 to 4 get in every year. I do. I don't think it's a guarantee like in the SEC. The SEC is going to be very, very difficult, as we've talked about, because of the two programs you've added and at the time that you've added them. You could have added Texas and Oklahoma 10 years ago when you added Mizzou and A&M, and it would look like night and day. Texas would have been begging to get out of this conference if you added them in 10 years ago. Now you're in the NIL era, and it's a level playing field for programs like that with deep pockets. A little bit different. So I don't think you're guaranteed to get in every year. The question, though, of which team it benefits most, I'll give you two. And if it's outside the SEC, the two teams are Notre Dame and Penn State. Now, Penn State's schedule is going to change a little bit, but Penn State is a team that lives around 8 to 11. I don't know the last time I think I've seen Penn State outside the top 15 in the country. They live at 10-2 every single year, and right around anywhere from 5 and 11. They don't beat Ohio State. They don't beat Michigan. James Franklin's record against those teams is really, really bad. I'm not going to get into the numbers on that because it's not that important. But you will see teams like that are perpetually 10-2. They're going to benefit from this because you're going to have a higher strength of schedule. You're going to be able to play teams like USC and Oregon. Now that the Big Ten is 18 teams, the team that's going to benefit the most is Notre Dame. A lot of people don't remember this, but when the BCS was around, Notre Dame had a built-in contract that was, if you get to 10 wins, you're in. Like you are in a BCS bowl, or now what has become a New Year's Six bowl. You just have to win 10 games. And I for one, I think Notre Dame's going to be very good this year. Very good. Let's not forget they got the OC from LSU that had the number one offense in the country a year ago. You got a new quarterback, Riley Leonard, who kind of fits the mold. He's not Jaden Daniels, but by any means, but he's an athlete and a good quarterback, even though he's coming off an injury. You also have Marcus Freeman, coaching up that defense and his pedigree. They're going to be really good. I'm so tired of pretending Notre Dame plays anything remotely close to one of the toughest schedules in the country. I don't give a blank that you played one of your 5 ACC games across the pond over there in Ireland. I really, really don't care that you play multiple military institutions in a Major League Baseball stadium every year. They're doing that twice this year. Notre Dame doesn't play a true road game from like week 2 to like November or something crazy. Like it's like 2 full months. But make no mistake about it, they will benefit more than almost any team in the country going into this era of the playoff, because now if they get to 10 wins, and you saw it last year too, Florida State should have been in over Bama. You've seen other times when like guys that get like left out right on the fringe there. If the side of that helmet, and I understand that's just a gold dome, but if the logo on that helmet or logo on that jersey is a blue blood, you better believe that a 10-2 Notre Dame is getting in over a 10-2 Ole Miss or Mizzou. So that's the team I think that will benefit the most out of that. Now, I appreciate you guys joining along. We will have we'll have shows all week. We are into the thick of it. Thank God. Very excited for it. Before we go, I want to give you guys just one more heads up. Listen, before or after you're done listening to the show, make sure you give your second listen over to our good friends at Locked On College Football. So thank you again for making Locked On Gamecocks your first listen. Now go check out Locked On College Football podcast. From NIL deals to never-ending conference realignment rumors, Spencer McLaughlin gets you covered and gets you ready for an exciting season on the gridiron. You can find the link to Locked On College Football in the description, so you don't even need to search. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Guys, have a fantastic Monday. We will get back to you tomorrow, and we will talk to you then. Y'all have a great day.